Hello and welcome to Presence Practice with Poonam and Parker. Hey Poonam.
Hello, Parker. Good to see
Oh,
you.
yes, you too. And once again, we are dressed similarly, same colors. So
We didn't plan on it.
we did not, but it's a testament to wholeness. So the topic of this video on this beautiful sunny, in some places and rainy here, Sunday afternoon is rising above cravings. So why are we calling it rising above cravings? I've had the benefit of going to a couple of AA meetings, and you're not supposed to talk about what happens there. It's just an agreement that they have amongst themselves. So I won't talk about that either, but I'm sure that there are plenty of people watching that have also attended. And it's this group of people, and it's like an uncorrupted institution that's went on for decades. So there's a lot of purity in that work with this program that they have. So they understand a lot about cravings. Now I want to say I don't know a lot about the whole program, but I loved the authenticity and the trueness and the awareness that are displayed with some of the speakers there, and not awareness of the outside world, awareness of themselves. I'm not saying it's absent guilt and shame, but there's certainly plenty that are, with some pretty heavy stories. It's very beautiful. And so one of the things that happens with cravings, which kind of go hand in hand with addictions, is that there's a hook, and we get in that hook and it goes around and around, and almost every human has some kind of addiction, whether it's socially acceptable or culturally acceptable or not. There's still an addictive cleaning, something that we feel that we can't say no to, or that we know is destructive and violent towards ourselves and others, and we feel stuck to move beyond it. One of the beautiful and helpful elements of yoga, or really I was considering the big athletes that I'm aware of and all the training that they do, but there's this place in yoga where you're either going to lose your equanimity or you stay with it, right? And there's a little voice, like little Parker voice, that will say, that's it, I cannot do another moment. But if you stay with it, if you could stay with it and just see maybe what's beyond the craving, what's on the other side of the craving, right? Then you can see that it's not automatic, that it can be not automatic. You take the pen out of that. So you didn't die. There's a whole book on not smoking. His name is Carl. Is that Carl? I can't remember. But it's kind of got a corny cover to it. But I've known that it's been super helpful for people. And so I read through it. And what he does in this book is takes the pins out of all of the failure around putting down this thing that we know is destructive. And so he said, see what happens if you just don't. In your mind, you've got it set that you need to, but what if you don't? Do you die? Did you implode? You didn't. If you could just put the attention, like in a yoga pose, in the discomfort and see your way through that first flush of burning, and on the other side of that, it feels like you could keep that posture for 10 minutes. It feels like you cannot partake in that substance, that alcohol, that glass of wine. You can see your way through to the other side of it. And that's nearly impossible if there's not a little bit of presence. Otherwise, you're taking in the self-flogging, which is just another egoic pattern to beat ourselves into shape. It's messy business being a human. It's still messy. We're not as clumsy as we were. We didn't have a big clumsy ego when we were completely unconscious, but we can still be clumsy, and some gentleness and support. It's the other reason why I think that AA can work, because there's true care there. They've all kind of meet in that place of knowing how to recognize when they need to grow, that they are not the whole perfect person. You know, and amazing how many cravings are really about a craving for comfort, which is really peace. It's like the immature element of peacefulness. So the alcohol feels like it's slowing your mind down, relax your body. You can do that with some good breath work and yoga and many, many other practices that will give you a higher quality experience of freedom from the continuously chewing thinking mind, which is a human condition. So I would say falling below the craving is where we just take another egoic pattern to fight this egoic pattern. Guilt and shame, the impulse, needing to prove to yourself or others that you can do it, right? A loving kindness as we would, as we are in the world with other people, with no judgment, clear, spaciousness to see what's happening there. And then we break that karmic cycle. I have tiny baby Kumar laying beside me, my Dachshund dog, little angel Puff, sitting beside me. And it would seem that when there's something going on in the kitchen or something that smells delicious, he is right on it. But right now he's just resting peacefully. I don't think he's considering the TREAT. He's just totally present, but he's definitely going to get pretty excited if he smells something delicious, or really anything going on in the kitchen, anything at all. Any slight noise might perk his ears up. He's not craving anything right now other than this very moment. Having a pet is can be a continuous reminder. It goes hand in hand with desires, the subtle ego to desire something different from how it is. The cravings for relationship, to be whole in a relationship. They used to make those, I don't know if they still do, but they used to make jewelry and it was like a half a heart or something. And then you give the half. I did it with my best friend. Here's your half, here's my half, right? They had that, look, please, somebody, where is my wholeness? It's a deep, deep craving, even in people waking up, to have that completeness, to seek this satisfaction outside of ourselves. We were going to do a video on that, and I think we will, free of external conditions, looking for satisfaction outside of ourselves or outside of the conditions that we're in, the facts of our situation, you know. So Poonam, I get cravings still at night if I know that there's chocolate in my house. I just want it so much. But I
Do you give
also
in to the craving?
sometimes I do. I go in and eat that bit of chocolate. If I notice that as I become more tired, right? It's very subtle, that little ether that comes in and says, I would like to go and have that. And what do? I see the reasons why it would be okay and acceptable to go and do that. And it is okay and acceptable that I do that. I've not had adverse effects to it that I'm aware of. But I've also know how to say, let's just stay right here, and to take a very loving hand with that, and not a serious one either, a loving hand. You don't want that it's not babyish. That's not the feel of it. It's a higher, more beautiful quality of loving kindness, where you just are there to see, to notice, right? And then to not add a story to it. And then you say, well, what if, like in yoga, what if, or if you're running, and there's a place in running where you could get to 2 miles, and they say if you run 2 miles, you can run 10 miles. And I have found this to be true in my experience. So there's this place that, like, for different people and for wherever you're at with your consistency with this, there's a place where it feels like you cannot take another step. You might, the voice is so loud to stop. And if you continue, then you move past that place. It's probably all kinds of things going on in our brain with endorphins and dopamine and fun things happening up there. But that's also another exchange. I've met many athletes that said that going to do CrossFit, going to do these things, or they would have been a drug addict or an alcoholic, or that they were, and now this thing. So they exchanged one set of a socially unacceptable solution to a quiet mind, or to peacefulness, which is what really the impulse is please give me peace and an end to this dukkha, this suffering. And then you have like the other side of it, which is just the acceptable, now we're going to go work out and pump as many endorphins, many naturally that I can get into but then the suffering doesn't go away. The suffering is still there. The big buff body, right? Medals and trophies on the wall, but still suffering. So ultimately, there's lots of different stories, and there's lots of similarities in stories, but it's going to be unique for each of us what our path looks like. But I want to say that, yes, gentle as we go. Yeah.
So what I would say is, especially for the past 4 years, encountering so many different people on the Facebook groups, the compulsion and tendency, as we discussed in What is Karma video, is written at the energetic level, right? So even if this physical form was not here, that energy, the non-physical energy, would move with that compulsion and tendency. Like if a 20-year-old man had a compulsion for drug addiction, then that is written at their energetic level. It's in their energy body. So even if his physical form passed away, that compulsion is still there. So the compassion and loving awareness that we need to bring to anybody that is overcome by cravings is that without presence, that is taking control. That compulsion tendency, the memory, the karmic memory of the compulsion, just like a computer's memory, right? It's already written at the energy body level. So the only thing, as Eckhart says, the only thing that is the savior for everything is presence. That other dimension needs to arise for sure. Whether you're an AA person, whether you go to Food Anonymous, or you go to Smoking Anonymous, or Alcoholics, and whatever it may be, the only thing that's going to save you from your craving and addiction is presence. And you can go to a therapist, you can go through EMDR, there's brain entrainment, there's brain painting. There are quite a few modalities that the therapist will use to erase your karmic memory, right? But they're essentially not, they're not using the word karmic, but they like Eckhart says, the past condition, he uses a more generic term. He'll say past condition patterns. You may have, that person may have family members, great grandmother to grandmother to grandfather, all having alcohol addiction. Then how are you not going to have alcohol addiction or food addiction, right? Or addiction to smoking. The easiest thing not to recognize is food addiction because it is socially acceptable that we get addicted to food and eat Taco Bell. And there's actually a neuroscientist that wrote a book about how these fast food companies actually put in, um, there are certain materials put in into the food, which are food additives, that flavors that trigger our brain, the oxytocin. It releases the same chemicals as what happens when we have drugs in our body.
Ah,
So how are you not going to be addicted to your Taco Bell burrito,
yes,
right?
I
So
was,
one of the things I would say is the compassion is the only thing that this human being can do is work on their presence power. I mean, Parker has done like gazillion breathwork videos. We talk about meditation. We talk about inhabiting body work, inhabiting the body. There are three definite methods. You do breath work, you do meditation, you inhabit your body, build your presence, and then see. Because then the other thing is the sense of lack and incompleteness. I'm incomplete, so I want. And that wanting is I want food, I want like a whole bag of chips. Now I cannot eat 5 chips, but I want the whole bag. Now I'm eating the bottom of the bag of the chips. Or I want French fries, but I want them loaded with like there's got to be Texas. I live in Texas. Everything is dripping with cheese, like this thick cheese. It's like, why do you have to eat that much cheese on every burrito, on every enchilada, on everything, even onion rings and French fries is loaded. They call it loaded potato, baked potato. Put salt and pepper on it and some butter. That's enough. No, it's like this pile of cheese in it, right? So how are you not going to be addicted and gain weight for a minute? So one thing to recognize is our pain, that we have to use our presence power to get rid of our pain body and our pain, because every addiction begins with pain. Every behind the pain, uh, behind the addiction is pain that is hiding. So the solution of the pain body is presence. No other way. So the hard work that needs to be done is focus your attention on your presence practice. That is what I would say. And all this, when the craving comes, give it a few minutes. Think about it. Uh, do I really need that cigarette? Do I really need that glass of wine? Do I really need that bag of chips? Give it a few minutes. Take a few, like Eckhart suggests in the book, right? Take a few conscious breaths. There's a guy on the Oprah webcast that said that he could use Eckhart's methods to get rid of his smoking, but he couldn't get rid of his alcohol. So that means that there's further pain in you. right? If you got rid of one addiction, but then you're not able to get rid of the second addiction, then that means that there is still pain and pain body in you that is that karmic memory has not been erased, and the only way to erase the karmic memory is that the fullness of life, the joy of being, of presence needs to arise. Once LSD high, we're good.
I think that our video went out there for a second. I think our video went out. We had some technical difficulties, so we're continuing our conversation on rising above cravings. And you were saying, Poonam, about moving into pure consciousness, pure conscious awareness. Let me finish.
That the joy of being is the joy of being conscious. So we are trying to fill, like, what Eckhart, the main thing I've learned from Eckhart, and it's a huge pointer, to fill that void of lack and incompleteness. Let me fill it with alcohol. Let me fill it with cigarette. Let me fill it with food, right? It turns it into, it's almost like putting Band-Aid all over our energy, right? Let me put the Band-Aid of a glass of wine, and now I've drank, still, you woke up the next morning and you're still feeling the void. So that is what craving is now habitually that pattern over the years has become a craving. And the moment you withdraw, take away from it, the more you want it, egoic wanting. So the only recourse to it is the joy of being, because once we are blissed out in being, there's nothing like it. Eckhart even says that he experienced LSD, and even LSD is not equivalent to the experience of just pure awareness, just sitting in that stillness, the purity of experiencing the energy that we are, right? There's nothing that's incomparable experience. And that's what is needed when that fullness of that is in within us. And then we see, because there's this fullness, life is moving us in the direction of where we need to go. we we experience this loving awareness in giving, in a selfless giving. Like Parker and I, we moved from, okay, there's a Facebook group, now offer a little bit more, let's do some group meditation, right? Offer a little bit more, and it feels so joyful to give all that, right? It's just the joy of experiencing the consciousness that you're in a group and everybody's together in a virtual setting, and it's it's like the most blissful experience that no words can describe. It's indescribable of what we can feel, and that's all that is needed. That's all that that human needed, was that joy. And look what they, all humans are doing. 7 billion humans are trying to fill that lack and incompleteness, that void, with some kind of craving: food, smoking, alcohol, drugs. Now pot is available almost everywhere. Thank God to the marijuana plant. It's keeping the sanity of so many.
Yes, and I would say that everybody has their own path, and that we're not saying here that any of this is a problem. We're saying that there is another way outside of cravings, and that we're not always getting it right, but we're on the path with you. And also that these support organizations, Food Anonymous, Alcoholics, and all the support, having a therapist, so it's not to say that there's not a place for that, but it's always about the quality of what we're engaged in, and that, you know, another belief system isn't going to rescue us. So, you know, we can come out here and sample all kinds of things, or bring in all kinds of tools, and then not be identified with the tool, or be able to grow beyond the tool into a place where the present moment is enough, and that we have willingly died again and again to the future, to labels, so that we can sit in that spacious awareness. And that if we're humans, that challenges are coming, and a lot of challenges come from craving and not enoughness. There's plenty of people that crave more status, more money, fame. They crave it, crave it, crave it, crave it, crave it, and then they get it and they're not happy. They're still not happy. So that's not the answer. It may, you know, they may try to polish that up really good for us in the world, but it doesn't mean that it's like that's the answer. It's not. It's an illusion. So solidarity on the path. I have an itchy nose. Thank you for letting me. If I were a TV broadcaster, they would fire me. You just not gonna do with putting your hands on your face like that. Okay. Thank you, Puno, so much for your wisdom.
Thank you, Parker. This is amazing.
Mm.